Nothing real serious.
That has the
Hello
answers.
and welcome to the Good Old Days, our program focusing on the history of Raynham. We talk about what happened yesteryear, and sometimes we talk
These
about...
are the good old days, or those were
What
the
are the
good old days?
days?
Norman's an expert on those were, although he still could do these.
These will be. But our host is retired Selectman Don McKinnon, and our guest is Mr. Norman Shippee, coming back for a return engagement because we enjoyed your visit so much last
We
time.
couldn't get out of the depression.
No, we're still in it.
We're still in the depression.
Not quite.
But just for somebody maybe didn't see you on previously, Mr. Shippee, you have, I think, did you originally come from Taunton?
I originally came from Taunton,
Okay.
but I graduated from the North Raynham Grammar School.
My goodness.
So you moved to
1940.
Raynham at a very
We
young
moved,
age.
Yeah, in the first grade.
Was
Actually,
it North School?
to the North School, yes. Yeah.
And you've been here in Raynham ever since?
No, we
No?
spent 20 years in Maine
Okay, all right.
learning how the other half lived. And so that's why Don smiles, but it's
Well, my son-in-law comes from Maine, and with all due respect to Maine, he's kind of glad he's not in Maine anymore.
Why?
That's an
I wish
opinion.
well, that's a question. But no, and we moved to North Raynham in 1938,
Okay.
just before the hurricane
Oh,
that came in.
I do remember that.
Yeah, we do, very much so.
If it were today, that kind of hurricane, wow.
Well, it'd be quite a bit of damage, I would say that, because
Because it wasn't as much.
But the problem is, in those days, they didn't have any reason to tell you what was coming. You didn't know whether it was a little
That was
storm or a big storm.
None of your business.
None of your business. And then they tried so many things after that they were going to put ships up and down the East Coast so that they could tell the weather when it hit certain points and give you a warning. But that was before all the electronics and things that they use today, so they had that. So,
But even today, on Channel 5, at one time they were telling us, they were going to tell us what it's going to do in your neighborhood, the
Yeah.
weather. Now they've got one English company, I believe, and one which is in Taunton
yes.
nationally. And so they've got two different weather forecasts coming at you. So they've got two different...
Two takes.
They're contradicting themselves in the year
Right,
2016.
Right, yeah. Yeah, well, we didn't have that then, and
No.
the day of the hurricane was one of those days. We were supposed to meet my father at down to Taunton Green at 4 o'clock when he got out of work, and go to Mattapoisett to take the tent down.
okay.
Big
The
wall,
tent stay
big wall
out
tent
was
that we
the
had for
wall.
the summer tent,
Now, what was the month of that?
September.
And the tent was still up.
Oh yeah, we hadn't quit. You know, we were still camping weekends, and we never did get there. He picked us up, and we had all we could do to get back to Center Street in Raynham,
Right.
because there were trees
Well,
down all
telephone
over the
poles
place,
and
and
trees and
everything
all.
all over the place. Yes, and those are the type of things where there was so much damage in many places. In Mattapoisett, not within 2 miles of where our tent was, they lost over 50 people.
Really?
Just
Fatality.
tidal wave just took them right out, the low spot.
Would that have been the worst hurricane, I guess, we ever had?
It was one of the worst ones up to that point. There are some that have been a little harder than
Diane
that.
and Carol
but they
weren't
were
in their
never. But
category,
you
were
weren't
they?
notified of them.
Yeah.
That was the difference
Yeah.
with that one. And so there. But then you go back and you wanted to start talking from the Depression up. I was a very fortunate child. My father worked at New England Brass Company in Taunton, Mass, and he was the superintendent. And he had a big job.
That is a big job.
Yeah, he ran the
Or it
plant.
was a big
But he
job.
got $19 a week during the Depression,
Wow.
salary, on which I know he supported at least 3 families. My cousins and aunts and uncles
Wow,
and things, how things were
$19.
spread out. Yeah, it was very much so. So that we were very fortunate. We really didn't feel the brunt of it.
Did you have a telephone?
We had a telephone, yes. We had a telephone because
Was
he
it
had
party
to.
line, Norm? Or
Was it a party line? Yes, it was a party. cake party. And you try explaining that when we go to the kids and
That's
talk
why-
about the third grade and say what a party line was.
If anybody can explain it,
can't
you
believe it.
can. And if
Yeah,
you
well,
can't, we got trouble.
it's just pretty near impossible.
Yeah.
And to say you pick up the phone and you hear somebody talking, well, if you got an emergency, you tell them, well, if they believe you, they'd hang up. If they didn't, you waited.
talking, that was that.
And you were stuck with it. And that
Even
was
just to
part of
explain
things.
to them that it's the dialed phone.
Oh,
they
well,
can't
there was no
understand
doubt.
that.
You talked to
An
Mary
operator.
or Ann or
This is
whoever
prior-
was on,
this is
whoever
prior
the...
to dial.
Right, there was no dial. No,
There was an operator.
it was the operator.
you-
Oh, yeah,
if
you
you
picked
could
up
get-
the phone and said you want 213.
Yeah.
You know, and that was it. All you wanted somebody. If you named the plant, they'd give you the number. You know, if you wanted to talk to Goodnow Moss Brooks, you'd say that, and you wouldn't have to know the phone
Amazing.
number. The operator did.
Were the phones out in the hurricane of '38?
Oh, everything was out.
Yeah.
Electricity was out for a long time. The thing that people don't realize, and it's one of the things that we try and talk about is, they don't remember that we didn't have chainsaws. We all hand tools.
So
I mean,
the guy on either end, right?
you remove trees with a two-man saw, or with a buck saw, or with an axe, and you didn't make much territory. If a road for 4 miles was covered with trees, you know, you
Right.
might make 4 or 5 trees a day, and that was it. And so that was the difference. And the thing I was thinking about was the difference, and we talk about education, and because I was in. When the war broke out, we were freshmen in Taunton High School. Now, we went from North Raynham Grammar School, right? 4 rooms, 8 grades. There weren't too much traveling around from classroom to classroom or
Right.
anything like that. You
Two
never had
classes
that.
in a room, right?
2 classes in a room,
One
yes.
and two
Every
was
teacher.
one room, 3 and 4.
Yeah, every teacher did two classes,
That's
right. But we were shipped from the 8th grade to Taunton High School. And all of a sudden, you're in a school that has homerooms. You change every class. You knew nothing about that. And you weren't sent down for an orientation. The day school opened was the day you got there.
Now, did they welcome you, or did
Oh.
they say, "You're from Raynham"? Huh?"
Well, a little of both.
Yeah.
A little, it depends. But we were fortunate because there were kids from Dighton and from all around. They were in the same boat we
Sure.
were. So you got with
Dighton
that
came
group.
there also, Berkeley, I imagine.
Berkeley, yes, and all of those places. Yeah.
Easton didn't know. Easton,
No.
But
Raynham
Easton was originally part of Taunton.
yeah, but it wasn't part
But
of
it
the
wasn't
school
the school
system when
system.
we were there. But the thing that I always said was, when we went into school, when we started in 1940, now the war hadn't started, right? And what was our expectation when we went in
Freshman.
as freshmen? We were then free and fancy. I mean, we decided what we wanted to do, and very few kids went to school because it was too expensive. It might have been that the tuition was only $600 a year, but that was
A lot of money.
a lot of money.
Well, you didn't have to pay the $600, though.
No, but I'm just saying, for going on to college and things like
college,
that.
Oh, you mean
Not
in
the high
college
school,
it was
no,
$600.
yeah. But, I mean, today, a kid goes to school, and what's he worried about? Which school is he going to? Can they afford it? And all of that stuff. But right after December 7th and the war came, everything changed. Because every boy in that class knew that within 6 weeks upon their graduation, they were going to be in the service somewhere. They would either be drafted or they would have enlisted and talked about. And
You're
talk-
talking seniors.
Seniors that graduated in 44. You were within 6 weeks. The boys were all in the army,
Right.
and they had no choice in it. They were going to go someplace, and that was one of the biggest things. Now
Well,
you
you're a
take-
World War II veteran.
I am. I was in World War II, but I'm not. I don't call myself a veteran because I got one of those places where, in the senior year of school, they came around from the Army Specialized Training Reserve Program, which was the one that
Was that in '44, Norman?
44, which is the same one that President Bush went to learn how to fly. That was what we were picked. If you passed the test, you were going to be trained as a pilot. And
What course did you take in high school? Commercial?
I
or-
took commercial, no. When I was in North Raynham Grammar School, Barbara Sullivan filled out my papers for me. It was industrial arts. I wasn't smart enough for the rest of the classes.
Well, I think that was proven wrong. But
Well, I had a lot of fun with it anyway, but I mean, it did what I wanted to do. I wanted shop. Regardless of what the other courses were, I didn't care. I wanted
you
shop.
wanted to work with your hands.
And I still work with my hands. But I mean,
Well, occasionally accidents happen.
yeah, well, you know that I'm still that game. But you could then, with the course I took, I could take any elective I wanted. I always had room for electives every year. I took trig, I took algebra, and science, 2 science courses that I took all the time. Now you must remember, and haven't said it too much out loud, but I had a twin brother.
Really?
Yes, we were in the same group.
Now, were you
And-
identical twins?
No,
Okay,
fraternal.
okay.
And Bob was supposedly the smart one. See, so they put him in the commercial course. He took French 4 years with the same teacher and flunked every year. And it come up to the time of our graduation, and he was 4 credits short. Because he flunked French 4 years in a row. So,
I had that trouble with history of all
but
things.
during that war, that wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
They just took 4 of my credits and gave them to him, and he graduated.
Lateral. Did you get a double promotion somewhere along the way?
No, we did not. No, we did not.
There were some of those going around.
Oh, well, it wasn't going to happen in our family. If it had happened, it wouldn't have, my father wouldn't have passed it. He'd have said, no, do it the hard way and do them all and things like that.
Right.
So I went, because I had taken that course, all those courses, when they came up for this
Well,
program.
some of those courses are what we call now college courses.
Yeah, right. But when it came up in the senior year, you could take this test if somebody from the office said you were qualified.
Okay.
Well, I happen to know the principal pretty well, so I went down and talked to him and said, I want to take it. He says, go ahead. Well, I passed, which wasn't
Now,
to be
did your
supposed
brother?
to be.
Did your brother?
No,
Was
my
it
brother
Bob?
wouldn't
Your
take
brother
the
was
test.
Bob?
No, he wasn't. No. He wasn't going to do that. But I passed it, and I got enrolled right then, sworn in that day right into the Air Force, Army
Air Force, right?
Right.
Yep.
Then I got sent to the University of Vermont. In between time, playing football, I had a football injury. I dislocated the shoulder good.
Okay.
And by the time I got up to Vermont, they decided I couldn't salute well enough,
Yeah.
and out I came. So
Sure.
I tried,
Right.
but I mean, there's nothing else you can do,
Sure.
you know, I mean, in the situation.
Because of your shoulder.
Yeah, I couldn't, no, I could salute and throw my arm out of joint,
Yeah.
you know, but that's what happened.
Right.
So that's what I was in the service, but I was in, and I did what I could do. And then I came home, and on the way home, when they shipped me back from Vermont, I stopped at Wentworth and went in and signed up. And when I came home, I
that's
told,
the beginning of Wentworth.
and that's how I started
1944.
going to Wentworth in '44, and I graduated in '46 from Wentworth.
And was it a 2-year school?
It was
in those days?
all 2-year school then, yes.
Right.
Was for years and years. And
They didn't call it normal though. That was
No,
where
no,
the
no,
teachers
no,
went.
no.
Normal
Wentworth
school.
was it wasn't a trade school, it was a
Institution.
technical school.
Technical school.
Technical is what they called it.
Always one of the best though.
Oh,
Always.
the biggest Wentworth, well, even when I got there in '44, they had the Navy in there full-time teaching machinist and everything that they had,
Right.
see, and things like that. So that was it, yeah. And so that you knew it was depression, you knew it was hard times and things like that and stuff, but it depends on how you're brought up.
Right.
Now, because I was out of the service, and I was qualified for everything because I'd been discharged. And they had a program, Don, they probably didn't have it after the Vietnam and stuff, but they had 52-10. For 52 weeks, they'd give you $10. That was big money.
Okay.
I mean, $10 was something.
Was that their version of the GI Bill at that
Yeah,
time?
well, it was the start of it and stuff like that. And all I can remember is I was sitting there talking about it
Would
one
they give
day.
it to you for 12 months or 10?
12.
12 months.
5210.
Yeah,
So I
Wow.
was talking about it, and my father looked over and he says, "Well, tell you what," he says, "the day you pick up that first check is the day you moved out."
Really?
In other words, you ain't going
Yeah.
to take nothing for nothing.
Yeah. And that was the attitude a lot of people had at that time.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Definitely that was it. And things like that.
So you had to get a job to support yourself at
That's
Wentworth?
exactly right. When I got through, I supported myself all through school.
Was that 600 a year, Wentworth?
Oh no, it was 120 a semester,
2 semesters?
2 semesters,
Right,
and you had to,
240.
yeah, yeah, and that was it. But I mean, and I paid that myself. I had to earn that myself.
How did you go in by bus or train?
Well, you could take a choice. Bus was $11 a month, and train was $11 a month.
so that's a choice.
In those days, so it was fairly good. Originally, when the first year, I would go to work with my father at 6 o'clock in the morning. He would drive me to the train station. And then when I got back at night, he would pick me up, whatever the hour was. We'd drive home, and I'd get in the car and go back and do his job. I went back to New England Brass
Okay.
and sat there and kept things clicking till he came back in at 11, and then he'd finished.
Wow.
He worked the nights.
He worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week during the war. I mean, he was running the plant, and that stuff was in those days. Yeah,
Holy mackerel.
yeah, and they were making brass that was used for bullets and shells, so
Really?
therefore,
They
It had
were
to be
very
pretty-
much in the war effort.
yeah, very much so. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. But I
And
was,
that's where you learned much of what you
oh well, I
used in
learned that
later
part of
life.
it, but yeah, but I also worked other places too. I always had a job. That was the difference between Robert and Norman. Norman worked, Robert played.
Did he play all his life, or did he find?
No, he didn't. He finally went in the Air Force and became a propeller specialist.
Oh.
And he got out in his 2 years and came back and was
So he was in from 44 to 46?
yeah,
and around
well,
there
a little after that. And he got married in Taunton right after we did, and he was working for Coca-Cola. I said, "You got to go to school." He says, "I can't go to school." I says, "What do you want to do?" He says, "I want to study mechanics." And I said, "Well, okay, study mechanics. They got the course at Wentworth." He says, "I can't get into Wentworth." I said, "Here, sign the stamped application, will you?"
And away he went.
And away he went.
By
And
train.
there wasn't any problem because
Yeah.
I'd been there long enough.
That was in New York, New Haven in those
yeah,
days.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so he went to Wentworth and graduated from the Air Force
Oh.
course, and he finished his career working for Lockheed as a test flight engineer
Oh.
for the C-130s that you see flying all over the place. He originally flew when he graduated from Wentworth, he went to work for Eastern Airlines, and then when that folded up, he went to work for Lockheed and worked there. So these are the things you do.
When
It's
did he pass, Norman?
19 years ago.
Oh.
18 years ago. Yeah, he's 72.
He was
Yeah, something like that.
87. He was around 70 years of age.
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. He'd been playing golf, and 3 days later he was gone.
Wow. Hot?
They don't know. It was in Georgia. So,
Now, during the war, Mr. Shippee, did they have a shortage of items? As far as food items or...
well, they didn't have butter. You didn't find butter too often. Meat was questionably because you had to have food stamps to get it.
Okay, okay.
And sugar and things like that. And most parents, most women were very judicious as to how they went out, and they planned way ahead, and they watched for sales, and
Yeah.
they'd go to all over the place buying stuff to where you could pick it up and stuff like. Yeah, it wasn't
But your
Plentiful.
family did have a car, though. And
Oh,
when I
yes,
say that,
well-
people listening will say,
Go-
well, some did have a car, and a lot of people didn't have cars.
better than that was that we not only had it. My father had to have a car. He had to
Well,
be
he's on
able to get to
24
work.
hours a day,
Yeah,
7
he
days
had
a
to be
week.
able to get to work. But also, my mother, quiet.
Did she have a license?
Huh?
Did she have a license to drive?
My mother had a license, yes.
Wow.
But she also was the first reader for the Christian Science Church,
Really?
which was the minister in the church. And all during the war, she did that.
Wow.
And that was, the only thing she didn't do is marry people, as close as I can tell. She buried them and she did everything else. But
Now,
I mean,
where was that church?
right across the street from the Baptist church on Winthrop Street.
Okay.
There's a little building there that's got a porch and pillars in it and everything. And see, that was a family, do we call it a family joke or what? But my father was not a Christian Scientist. But my father got up every Sunday morning, put on his white shirt and his tie, and drove Mother to church.
Did he attend services?
I didn't listen to the whole story, Don. He drove her to church. And then he went down to Carlos and picked up his newspaper, drove back and parked in front of the church and read his newspaper. And Wednesday nights, he'd come home from work, change his clothes, drive her down for church services, sit in the car and wait for her.
And he was all dressed up, though.
Oh, yeah, but he was ready if he had to. He could meet people and stuff like that. But the other thing was, he did at least 90% of the maintenance of the building. He painted it, and we built steps, we put in the pews, I can remember doing everything. But he just was not a member of that church, but he was a member of...
Did you go to the services, Norman?
Well, occasionally. Yeah. We went, normally, Dad sent us to Winslow Church, which was the Congregational Church.
Okay.
See, and then, of course, the Unitarian Church, either one. We went to both. But, I mean, we had to go to church, and we went in Raynham for years and years and years.
To the Congregational Church?
Yeah, in
North
Raynham. Used to be in Raynham. Yeah, it used to be a real Congregational Church.
It was a large building? Yeah, still,
Yeah, and it
is that the
switched
one
over.
that's still there now?
Yeah. Yeah, that's still switched over.
Right.
Oh gosh, you can tell stories about those places anytime you want about the church suppers. You talk about during the war with church suppers. The church would buy chicken, just buy the chicken. And then they'd give them to the women of the church to make a chicken pie.
Okay.
And somebody had to go collect them. It was usually Reverend Leonard, the old guy. He had a 35 Chevy. I never forget it because he was a lousy driver. But I mean, he and I were out collecting chicken pies for the chicken supper. And we got within a half a mile of the church, and he ran out of gas. And he looked at me, he says, "Have you got any money?" I said, "I got a dime." And he says, "Run down to the gas station and get 10 cents worth of gas and a jug of something. Bring it back and pour." And we did. We got back to the church.
Unbelievable.
Those were the days.
I
There
guess.
was nothing
Now, the
was.
houses you stopped at, were they Congregationalist?
What's that?
For the pies? The
Yeah, that
people-
was congregational.
No, but were the people, or were they just
the
other-
people would, no, the members of the church would
Okay.
all do it, and they had
Did
big
your
dinners.
mother ever go to those services?
Sure, she cooked chicken pies for them too. I mean, that was part of the group.
Yeah.
That was the thing. And these are the things that you did in those days. There was more of that going on all the time.
Yeah.
And things like
Community involvement.
that. Right. And that's one of the things. And you stop and think today, when World War II was around, when they started out, they had 16 weeks basic training. The next thing you know, it was down to 12 weeks. And it was down to 12 weeks because the kids they were getting were the ones that had been out playing in the woods every day of their life or running around playing baseball and doing things. Today, they can't do that. Takes twice as long today to get a kid in physical shape.
Because they were already in physical shape.
They were. That was the thing. People did it. Yeah, and think nothing of it. Yeah, and that was the way I think about it. Yeah. So you talk about Raynham and things like that. The Cody family at the foot of the hill on Center Street there. They had a relative used to come down from Quebec, a Cody, and he ran in the marathon races. What he did to practice, Don, was put snowshoes on and ran through the hayfields
Oh, my gosh.
to
Did he
practice.
win that once? Because Clarence DeMar was the big runner when I was a kid.
I'm not sure whether he ever
Cody-
won it. He was
Cody
good.
is a name that I remember.
I know there is a name in
I
there,
do
but
remember
I'm
that
not
name.
sure. I honestly don't remember that part of it,
He
but I
was,
do remember that of
The
it.
name
yeah.
Cody was up there in runners. I
Oh yeah,
remember that.
yeah. There were a lot of things like that, but there was a lot of stuff like that. And of course, in our day, there was one bus.
Really?
Yeah, Williams owned the bus, Williams Garage, and they did all of Taunton, and they took the kids to high
Oh,
school
my gosh.
too with one bus. And they did all of that. Of course, and the other thing was, my father used to say, if you missed the bus, you got a bicycle. And we used to go to pedal to Taunton High School. We could do it in very little time.
Really? Wow.
Because we weren't allowed to be late.
Yeah, wow.
So I think those are the different things that I find that we
Now, the
did.
vocational school was in the same where now is the parking. for
Yes, it was in the
Norton
parking
Hospital.
lot, right.
Did you go vocational? Or did
No,
you stay
I
in
went
the
to
regular
Taunton High, and that was where the wood shop was.
Yeah.
The vocational school was the machine shop.
Oh, all right.
Yes, yeah.
That wasn't very large, but it was.
No, it was one building.
Right.
It was one
One building.
one round square brick
It's a parking
building.
lot now.
Yeah, right there. Yeah, that's where that was. And I know. I had a friend who just passed away, who went days to Taunton High School, but he wanted to learn machinist, so he went night school to the Voc
Wow,
school.
so we went to both.
Yeah.
Well, that preceded Bristol Plymouth, we call it now.
Oh yeah, but that was 25,
Entirely
30, 40
different
years
world.
later.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. Yes, that's the thing.
So then you got your career, though, took you to Maine.
Well, we decided to go to Maine. Yes, we wanted to.
I mean, was the job up there, or did you
Oh,
go
all
up there and
kinds of
just look
jobs
for it?
up there, yeah. I taught school up there, I built hospitals, I did
gosh.
2 or 3 other things. I had a email Sunday afternoon, I had an email from a friend in Maine. He said, the question was, I have a question about the building. Will the roof hold a second floor and the lower portion hold a second floor? And I took that and I said, I did that building 64 years ago. What do they think I know about that one? Now it's the building I designed. So, well, I mean, so that you have these things, they still come up.
Yeah, my
Still call
gosh.
you.
Oh, yeah. So, but I thought it was funny.
Well, it must have been designed very well if 64 years later and they're thinking about putting
Some
a
of the
second.
things aren't standing that was 60.
Yeah, well, that was a
Really?
good building. That was it was a Masonic temple.
Okay.
And so it was
You
well
had
done.
more religions on your fingertips than most
Oh,
people
yeah,
think about.
well, that's true. That's the way it doesn't hurt.
What brought you back to Raynham?
My parents and
Okay.
my wife's parents. Right. My wife was the only child, so we had to come back for her. My parents were here, but we came back anyway because for them. They were in Presbury Court, and Judith's folks were still in her home, right by us there. Yeah. So that's it.
Well, that's right. Your father-in-law was pretty famous in history in Raynham, wasn't he, though?
He worked. He was. I don't know how famous he was, but
Wow.
he was an assessor for years for the town of
What
Raynham.
was his...
Max Witters.
Witters, yeah. That's a famous name in Raynham.
Oh yeah, well, it's a well-known name.
It
Yeah.
is, yeah.
Yeah, and so part of it, yeah. He worked for the alcohol company in Taunton. Of course, you say that, most people say, what's that? And they let it go at that and stuff, but I
Witters,
was,
I do remember. Do you remember that name, Pat? No? Witters? No? Oh, okay.
no, she doesn't, she's too young.
That's okay. But you know what, Don? Believe it or not, we are almost out of
Oh,
time.
you're kidding me.
Time
That
flies.
time
We
when
do
you're-
this
flies.
with Norma. This is
He has to
what
keep
happens.
coming back.
We don't get to what we were going to talk about. But with flies, holy mackerel.
Well, that's
Patricia,
good.
wow.
Gonna be there.
That's nice.
Well, we'll have to have you back sometime again
Uh-oh.
because we didn't even get out of, we're not even into
Not
the
of the
50s.
40s yet. No, that was a long time ago,
I
yeah.
have to do the different decades, the
That's right.
50s
I
and
have to do
60s.
you by decades.
Okay, that'll work.
But Mr. Shippee, as Mr. McKinnon, are two of our favorite visitors to our schools for our Children and Seniors Together Week, and that'll be
He
coming up
brings his crafts.
in about a
in.
month, so
You
that's
still bring
great.
those in, Norma?
What?
The crafts.
That you bring in your-
Oh, well, that depends on what I do. We did the 6th grade. I thought that was a good one that year. That should be done again sometime. but
great.
trying to show people what they can do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you design many of those.
Well, you know, I have a son in Georgia who takes after his father. If he wants to make something, he figures out how. And he is now making strip canoes. and
All right.
of course, he works in retail.
Okay.
So we can sell them there.
Probably.
Well, Norman, we are running
We are
into
out
the-
of time.
As Gowdy would
But-
say, rounding third and heading home.
Exactly. But thank you very much for coming, Mr.
Thanks.
Shippee, our
Thanks
guest,
again.
Norman
Thank you for being
Shippee.
here.
We want to thank all of you for being with us as well, and we'll see you here on the next episode of The Good Old Days.
There it is.